put yourself in that creative state of mind and see what happens to, like, pay attention to your emotional state while you are creating, and see if you can be aware of the shift that happens from the previous emotional state into this creative state, and see, I mean, maybe you can be negative and bummed out and depressed while being creative. I don't know if it's possible.
Welcome to the EQ Gangster podcast, where you will learn practical tools to grow your mental and emotional health and intelligence to be the best version of yourself, both at work and at home. It is real, raw, and transformational. The journey of emotional growth isn't easy, but it's worth it. I believe in you.
EQ Gangsters, what's up? Hope you guys are doing amazing. So this episode is going to be on the relationship between creativity and emotional intelligence, or more specifically, the relationship between creativity and being dumpy diapers, negative Nancy, depression, or Eeyore, as in Winnie the Pooh Eeyore, for those y'all that are familiar with the Pooh. So Eeyore is the donkey in Winnie the Pooh cartoon storyline that is always dumpy diapers, never happy, moping around, etc., etc. So here's a couple things too before I jump into the episode. Is I want to share a few things that I am thankful for. I am thankful for family time. I'm thankful for my awesome wife. I'm thankful for the concept of momentum. I'm thankful for pine trees, and I am thankful for the smell of pine trees and the smell of fires, of like campfires, and the sound of campfires, the snap, crackle, pop. And I'm thankful for the stars. Okay, this episode comes from a conversation that I had with a client, and in kind of a challenging situation with the company / job, and it's a very common occurrence. So, and I shared a story that I had in the military. Well, there's lots of stories about this in the military. What happened? So now I was a little second lieutenant in the Army, in the 82nd Airborne Division, rifle platoon leader, airborne ranger, jump master, all that stuff. And we would occasionally get decisions that would come down from higher. And that would mean sometimes it would come from our battalion commander, sometimes it would come down from who's typically a lieutenant colonel, or our brigade commander, who's typically a full bird colonel, an 06, lieutenant colonel's an 05, full bird brigade commander is 06, or sometimes from the CG himself, which is a 2-star general, the commanding general. CG commanding general is a 2-star general. So sometimes it would come from higher, right? And sometimes it would come down from the Army on occasion. When decisions would come to the rifle platoon, just using that as an example, because that was the unit, that was my level that I was in this scenario. It's for all intents and purposes, it's the smallest unit in the Army. Now it still goes down to a fire team, and then down to the individual soldier, from the individual soldier again back up to the fire team, back up to the squad, and then back up to the platoon. But the platoon is like Anyway, it's a very, very small unit in the military. When a decision would come down from higher, and again, whether that's the Army or the 82nd, something like that, there was very, very, very little that I could do if I disagreed with that decision. As a second lieutenant, the lowest officer rank in the Army, second lieutenant, it's the very first starting, it's the private version of an officer. So it doesn't get any lower rank than a second lieutenant in the officer ranks. As a second lieutenant in the Army, very, very little difference that I can make in a decision that came down from, again, higher. And the higher up it went, the less impact or ability I'm going to have to affect or impact that decision. And so there were times where, in my little world, my little platoon perspective, I would just make it this big giant deal. Oh my gosh, they're changing the uniform. Let's say they're changing the uniform. They're changing the pattern, the camouflage pattern from one pattern to another pattern. Oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. I can't believe the military is doing this. What are they doing? Don't they understand? And I would make a mountain out of a mouse turd. Do you know anyone who's ever made a mountain out of a mouse turd? Have you ever made a mountain out of a mouse turd? Have you made it's and the EQ phrase is called catastrophizing. That's a term, a psychological term that is used in the EQ space, in the psychology space, for this scenario of turning a mouse turd into a mountain, is called catastrophizing, where whatever it is like the end of the world. It's the worst that it could ever possibly be. Oh my goodness, we're all gonna die if they change the camouflage pattern on this uniform. If you don't do this behavior, or if you do this behavior, everyone is gonna die. So this super catastrophizing kind of concept. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but just get the concept. So, and so when you're in that position, it can feel very frustrating. It can feel very angering. It can feel very helpless, very hopeless, when you have to implement a decision that you had zero input in creating, and zero control over over kind of the decision that has been made. You just have the responsibility to obey, so to speak. So very little control, but still you have all the responsibility, and the responsibility, again, to obey and or follow through. Again, which, if you don't support this particular decision, can be a very, very frustrating, emotionally frustrating position to be in. This client of mine was in a very similar situation, but in corporate America style of that dynamic. Decisions were made at a much, much, much higher level that affected him on the tactical ground, so to speak. Even though he's a senior leader within the unit, the organization, the company that he is in, but there are multiple levels above him from where these particular decisions came down, and it affected him. It affected not only him, but it affected his team, and so he's like, dude, how do I understand that I have to control what I can control. In fact, I asked him, I said, so when you brought this up to your, again, using a military term, your chain of command, what did your immediate supervisor say? And one of the principles I think it's a very good principle is, and I used to say this all the time too, when I was in the military and then early on in my business career, you can control two things: your actions and your attitude. Outside of those things that are in your control, which are your actions, your attitude, outside of those things, you can't control them. So don't sweat it. Don't sweat the small stuff, so to speak. These were not small things for him, and he's like, so how can you help me with reconciling those things that are out of my control, that I had zero input in the decision making of the guidance that came down, but it 100% affected me and my team. Negatively affected him and his team from a financial perspective, to be more specific. And so I asked him, I said, okay, I said, dude, great question. And so, hey, control what you can control. Great. Again, dig it. Sometimes, which is true, that's true, and it's a true statement. Control what you can control. And sometimes it's helpful to get some practical solutions for the challenge. In fact, I'm a huge proponent of not going to anybody with a challenge without at least 2 or 3 solutions for that particular challenge. Some of us have gotten intellectually lazy in the job world and said, well, boss, you do the thinking for me. I don't get paid to come up with solutions. I just get paid to fix stuff. I just think that's intellectually lazy and job lazy too. So for me, the SOP is, if you have a challenge with something in the company that, and maybe you don't have the authority or the responsibility to fix it on the spot, still, I want to hear, how would you, if you had the authority, the power, the responsibility, the resources to fix this challenge that you just brought to me, what are 2 or 3 different ways that you would fix it? So I like to be solution oriented. And so in this scenario, okay, so what are some actual solutions that we could do to affect change? So here's kind of, so then we kind of threw that around. What are some things? What's one thing that the team could do to one thing that the team could do to take care of the customer a little bit better? Maybe not full Ritz-Carlton 4 Seasons level, or maybe not full Chick-fil-A level of taking care of the customer, but like, what's one thing that we could do? One thing that we could do to put a little bit bigger smile on the customer's face. Because I think that's something that, heck, it happens to me too. I get complacent in my taking care of my customers, which is, I'm not proud of. I'm not happy, but I've done it. And so it's an exercise that I've got to do with my customers. So what's one thing? And so boom, started throwing around ideas, being creative, and I think, throughout a number of legit, solid, creative ideas of how to affect change in that leader's world, corner slice of the world. And I said, okay, so so talk to me. What are your thoughts and stuff? He's like, man, this was great. Definitely turned the frown upside down. He didn't actually say that, but that's essentially what happened. He's like, man, you definitely got the gears going and the juices flowing, and it made me think, wow. And I've never done research on this, so some of you all may know. I don't know. Is it possible to be dumpy diapers, negative Nancy, droopy drawers when you are actively in a creative state? Like, think about that. Have you ever been bummed out in a negative mood with a negative attitude when you are actively in the process of creating something? Now, I know there's research that it's not physiologically possible to be excuse me, to be negative Nancy dumpy diapers when we are grateful and in a state of gratitude. I've seen some research from psychologists and stuff on that. So I know gratitude works where, again, you can't be in a bad attitude and be in a mind state of gratitude at the same time. So again, which begs the question, okay, how can I create more of a state of gratitude? How can I develop my gratitude capacity? So I thought about the same thing in regards to creativity. Well, man, because even in that moment when I was helping this leader create solutions, some creative solutions for this leader's team and for this leader, guess what? I was motivated. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. And like it legit, like I physiologically felt like, oh man. So, and again, I've never done the research. My little anecdotal hypothesis is that there is a correlation between being creative and feeling good and not feeling bad or not feeling negative. So here's my challenge and encouragement to you all is just try it out. Try it out. Let's do this, kind of together. The next time we find ourselves feeling negative Nancy, dumpy diaper, something like that, figure out how you can be creative. Maybe it's, oh man, I'm starting to get dumpy diapers. I'm feeling a little down. I'm upset about something. Okay, what are some business ideas? What are some financial ideas? What are some start drawing. Maybe start drawing some pictures, doodling. Come up with write down some creative words. Something that puts you in a creative state of mind. Think about what are some creative exercises that you can do the next time you find yourself in a negative or bad mood or depressed mood, and just see if you, and maybe set your alarm 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of just being creative. Put yourself in that creative state of mind and see what happens to, like, pay attention to your emotional state while you are creating and see if you can be aware of the shift that happens from the previous emotional state into this creative state, and see, I mean, maybe you can be negative and bummed out and depressed while being creative. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if it's possible. So thank you for just being a part of this journey, your patience, your grace as well. And I encourage you also to give yourself grace and patience along the journey. Grace and patience, not criticism and judgment. Grace and patience with your journey and others' journeys, not criticism and judgment.